I never thought that spending just one night at home without my wife would shake me up so much. When my wife went out of town for 2 days for work, my neighbor did something that left me completely stunned. And from that moment, nothing felt the same again. Hello, friends. You are watching and listening to Affection Unbound, where you will find real stories along with heart-touching tales. And to hear more such true stories, subscribe to the channel right now. So, let's begin. In the misty embrace of Cannon Beach, Oregon, where the Pacific Ocean whispered secrets to the rugged coastline, I, Ethan Harper, a 34-year-old freelance illustrator, had built a life that felt like a warm, well-worn sketchbook. My wife, Amelia, worked as a curator at the local history museum, and for 8 years, our marriage had been a canvas of shared dreams, lazy mornings with coffee and croissants, debates over exhibit layouts, movie marathons under fleece blankets, and hikes along Haystack Rock where we'd chase the tide in each other's laughter. It was the kind of harmony that made me grateful every damn day, like I'd hit the jackpot in this small-town lottery. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and mine came on a crisp fall afternoon. Amelia and I had just hit up the weekly farmer's market in nearby Seaside, our reusable bags bulging with organic apples, crusty sourdough, and bunches of kale that she swore would make the best salads. We were brainstorming a DIY project for our cozy bungalow, maybe repainting the porch swing in a fresh coat of ocean blue, when we rolled into our driveway. Our neighbor, Lila Bennett, a 42-year-old potter whose earthy ceramics graced galleries from Portland to Astoria, was out front, glazing a new vase in her sun-dappled yard. Her ex-husband had bailed on her 2 years back, cheating with a colleague and leaving her to piece together the shards of their life in divorce court. She'd been quiet since, throwing herself into her wheel and kiln like they were her only confidants. She waved as we parked, her smile carrying a spark I hadn't noticed before, like a hidden glaze firing up under light. Amelia waved back enthusiastically and headed inside with the lighter bags, calling over her shoulder, "Don't forget the cider, Ethan," leaving me to haul the crates of pumpkins and squash. Lila set down her brush and strolled over, her overalls smudged with clay, eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach flip. "Hey, Ethan," she said, her voice low and laced with something vulnerable. "You ever feel like, in this tiny town, the only real talks I look forward to are the ones with you?" It landed like a rogue wave crashing over the jetty. I chuckled nervously, shifting the crate in my arms. Well, small towns breed that kind of neighborly chit-chat, right? Can't escape it. But she didn't laugh. Her gaze held steady, soft and searching, like she was seeing right through my deflection. I muttered something about helping Amelia unpack and bolted inside, heart pounding a little too hard. Amelia was in the kitchen, humming an old Fleetwood Mac tune as she rinsed the produce, her auburn hair catching the afternoon sun. "Find any good cheese?" she asked, grinning. I forced a smile, setting down the crates, but Lila's words clung to me like sea salt on skin. That seed of discomfort took root, subtle at first, but persistent. The next few weeks rolled on like the predictable Oregon fog. Amelia and I shared pancake breakfasts, mapped out a road trip down the coast to her folks in California, and stuck to our rhythm of work and play. Yet, every time I passed Lila's studio, with its windows glowing from the kiln's fire, I'd steal a glance, half dreading, half wondering if she'd be there. One drizzly evening, after a grueling deadline for a book cover commission, I trudged home to find her on her porch swing, molding a lump of clay absent-mindedly. "Rough day at the drawing board?" she called out, her tone casual but her eyes warm. I paused, keeping the fence between us. "Yeah, clients can be picky, just deadlines piling up." She nodded, her fingers shaping the clay with deliberate strokes. Most conversations around here are surface level, rain forecasts, crab season, who's got the best clam chowder. But with you, Ethan, it's different. I feel seen, like I can finally exhale after holding my breath for so long. Her honesty hit me square in the chest, tinted by the scars of her betrayal and the lonely nights that followed. I mumbled something generic about how good friends make all the difference, then excused myself, her words echoing like distant thunder. Back inside, Amelia's embrace was my anchor, her laughter filling the room as she teased me about my artist's brooding face. We curled up on the couch with takeout from the local diner, her head on my shoulder, but I kept Lila's confession locked away, worried it had cast shadows where there were none. That night, as rain pattered on the roof and Amelia's steady breathing lulled beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling beams. A quiet storm was brewing, one that tested the lines I'd drawn in the sand. It built to a head not long after. Pulling into the driveway late one night, the streetlights casting golden pools on the wet pavement, I spotted Lila by her pottery wheel outside under a string of fairy lights. She wasn't working, just sitting like she was waiting. "Long night?" she asked as I got out, her voice soft against the ocean's roar in the distance. I nodded, slinging my messenger bag over my shoulder. "Yeah, just wrapping up some edits." She stood, stepping closer to the fence, her expression earnest. "Ethan, I have to say this. I know you're married, happily from what I see, but I've developed feelings for you. Real ones." The air whooshed out of me like I'd been punched. Her eyes shimmered with truth. No games, no malice, just raw emotion born from her shattered past. My pulse thundered. "Lila, that's not something I can even consider. Amelia is my everything. We've built this life together." She swallowed hard, nodding. "I get it. The pain from my divorce, the cheating, it messed me up. But what I feel for you isn't just rebound. It's genuine." I glanced toward our lit window, where Amelia was probably prepping dinner, humming away. "You're in a tough spot," I said gently, "and it's easy to mistake kindness for more. But this can't be." Tears welled in her eyes, but she promised she'd back off, respect the space. I slipped inside, masking the chaos in my chest, and wrapped Amelia in a hug that lingered a beat too long. "Missed you," I murmured into her hair, dodging her curious glance. That night, as we drifted to sleep tangled in each other, I made a silent vow. Our marriage was sacred, and I'd guard it fiercely. Lila's words weren't a lure, but a wake-up call to how easily things could fracture if I wasn't vigilant. From then on, I'd keep the distance, let her heal on her own terms, while I poured everything into the woman who held my heart. The days that followed were a deliberate exercise in normalcy, like sketching over a mistake to blend it into the background. Amelia and I carried on, planning our coastal road trip, laughing over her attempt at homemade gnocchi that turned into gluey dumplings, and stealing kisses during our evening walks along Ecola State Park. But Lila's confession had left a faint crack in my peace, like a hairline fracture in a favorite mug you keep using anyway. I didn't mention it to Amelia, not wanting to stir up worry over something I'd already decided to bury. Still, every creak of the porch swing or glimpse of Lila's studio lights made me brace for another wave. One sunny Saturday, as we hauled our market haul, crisp apples, a wedge of local cheddar, and a jar of Marionberry jam, Lila appeared at the edge of her yard, holding a flyer for a community pottery workshop. Her smile was bright, almost too bright, like she was trying to paint over her own unease. "Hey, Amelia, you ever thought about joining a pottery class?" she asked, her voice cheerful but her eyes flickering to me for a split second. Amelia, oblivious to the undercurrent, lit up. "Oh, that sounds fun. Maybe we could both try it, Ethan." I nodded vaguely, my gut twisting. "Maybe," I said, keeping my tone light. Lila handed Amelia the flyer, her fingers brushing the paper with care. "It's a great group," she added. "Keeps me busy." Her glance at me was brief, almost apologetic, before she turned back to her wheel. That night, over a dinner of grilled salmon and roasted asparagus I'd thrown together, I brought it up carefully. "Lila seems like she's leaning on us a bit," I said, swirling my glass of Pinot Gris. "Maybe she's just lonely, with the divorce and all, but I think we should keep some space." Amelia tilted her head, her hazel eyes searching mine. "You think?" "She's always been sweet, but yeah, I've noticed she's around a lot. Probably just needs new friends after what her ex pulled." Her empathy for Lila, so pure and unguarded, made my chest ache with both love and guilt. Yeah, probably, I agreed, squeezing her hand. Let's just focus on us for a bit. The resolve to set boundaries felt like drawing a clean line in my sketchbook, but testing it came sooner than I expected. A few days later, after a long session tweaking a client's logo, I was unlocking my bike from the rack outside the coffee shop when Lila appeared, carrying a glazed vase. "Ethan, got a sec?" she asked, her tone hesitant. I tensed, gripping the handlebars. Before she could say more, I spoke up, keeping my voice firm but kind. "Lila, I meant what I said. Amelia's my world, and I can't let anything jeopardize that. We're neighbors, and I care about you as a friend. But that's it." Her face fell, the vase trembling slightly in her hands. "I know," she whispered. "I was out of line. It's just, after everything, you're the first person who made me feel alive again. But I get it. I won't push." She stepped back, offering a small, sad smile before heading to her studio. Relief washed over me, cool and steady like the tide. I pedaled home, the ocean breeze clearing my head. Amelia was in the living room, surrounded by museum catalogs, her glasses perched on her nose. I dropped onto the couch beside her, pulling her into a hug. "What's this for?" she laughed, nuzzling my neck. "Just 'cause I love you," I said, meaning every word. That night, as we danced to an old Springsteen record in the kitchen, her laughter echoing over the clink of dishes, I felt the fracture begin to mend. Lila's feelings weren't my burden to carry. They were hers to work through, and I'd chosen my path. As the weeks unfolded like pages in a well-loved novel, the unease that Lila's confession had stirred began to dissolve into the salty air of Cannon Beach. I threw myself deeper into my illustrations, landing a gig for a children's book about tide pool adventures that had me sketching starfish and anemones with renewed passion. Amelia and I ramped up our little rituals, surprise picnics on the beach at sunset, where we'd spread out a blanket and share stories from our day, her hand in mine as the waves crashed like applause. She'd lean her head on my shoulder, the wind tousling her hair, and I'd feel that quiet certainty. This was home. Unbreakable. Lila, for her part, seemed to honor the boundary I'd set. I'd spot her at the farmer's market, chatting animatedly with a group of artists, her laughter carrying on the breeze without that lingering glance my way. She even started hosting pottery nights in her studio, the warm glow from her windows spilling out like an invitation to the community. One afternoon, as Amelia and I strolled past with our dog, Scout, a scruffy rescue mutt we'd adopted last year, Lila waved from her porch, her smile genuine and free of undercurrents. "Hey, neighbors! Loving the fall colors?" she called. We waved back, Amelia shouting something about the changing leaves inspiring her next museum exhibit. No awkward pauses, no hidden meanings. It felt like closure, like she'd turned a corner in her healing. But life, in its infinite wisdom, doesn't let you off that easy. About a month later, during a rare clear evening, I was out in the backyard firing up the grill for burgers when Lila appeared at the fence, holding a small wrapped package. My heart skipped, but her expression was calm, almost serene. "Ethan, I wanted to give you this," she said, handing it over. "No strings, just to thank you for being kind when I needed it." I unwrapped it to find a handmade mug, glazed in swirling blues and greens like the ocean we both loved. "It's beautiful," I said honestly. She nodded, her eyes clear. "I've been working through things. Therapy, new friends. I'm sorry for putting you in that spot. You and Amelia deserve your happiness." There was no plea in her voice, just quiet acceptance. I thanked her, and as she walked away, I felt the last knot in my chest unravel. That night, over dinner on the deck with the stars peeking through the clouds, I finally opened up to Amelia. Not the full blow-by-blow. Some things are better left as footnotes, but enough to share the weight I'd carried. "Lila had a crush," I said, poking at my salad. Told her it wasn't mutual, but it shook me a bit. Amelia set down her fork, her face a mix of surprise and understanding. "Oh, Ethan, why didn't you say? I get it, though. After what she went through, It's gotta be tough. She reached across the table, her fingers intertwining with mine. But you chose us. That means everything. We talked late into the night, her empathy weaving us closer, turning vulnerability into strength. It was like adding a new layer to our bond, one forged in honesty. Months slipped by, and the incident faded into memory, a brief storm that left the air clearer. Lila's pottery took off. She landed a spot in a Portland gallery show, and we'd see her posts on the local community board, beaming with pride. No more solitary evenings. She was out there, rebuilding. Amelia and I, meanwhile, dove headfirst into our road trip plans, packing the car for a drive down Highway 101, stopping at lighthouses and hidden coves, her laughter my favorite soundtrack. We'd pull over at viewpoints, arms around each other, watching the sun dip into the Pacific, and I'd whisper how lucky I was. At the annual Cannon Beach Sandcastle contest that summer, under a sky as blue as Lila's mug, we ran into her again. She was with a new guy, a fellow artist with a kind smile, building a lopsided castle that had everyone chuckling. Our eyes met across the sand, and there was only warmth, neighborly, uncomplicated. "Looks great," I called, and she grinned back. Amelia squeezed my hand, and we wandered off to judge the entries, our steps in sync. In the end, it wasn't about drama or forbidden longing. It was a quiet reminder of how fragile and precious commitment is. Lila found her footing through her art and time, emerging stronger. And me? I held Amelia tighter, leaving notes in her lunch, slow dancing in the rain, cherishing the everyday magic we'd built. Our life in this coastal haven wasn't perfect, but it was ours, rooted deep, weathering whatever came. As the waves rolled in eternally, so did my love for her, steady and true.